Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of this discussion. My name is Brian Rahm, and I work for the New York State Water Resources Institute at Cornell University. My job is to develop understanding of unconventional gas extraction and its interaction with and impact on water resources. My goal is to act as a neutral source of information to the public. People are very excited in New York about this activity, and to policymakers at local, state, and federal levels. I have therefore been following EPA's investigation with interest from a New York perspective. Unconventional gas development, not just hydraulic fracturing per se, involves multiple activities that can and do impact water resources. We know accidents happen. Accidents present risks and have impacts. Figure 2 of my written testimony shows the prevalence of violations issued by Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection to unconventional gas operators over the last few years. Spills of various kinds, often of waste fluids, occur relatively frequently. Many of these spills are small and contained. Less frequently, they are larger and pose risks to nearby surface and groundwaters. Apart from accidents, we also know that cumulative impacts are possible. Cumulative impacts result from multiple individual events occurring across the landscape. For example, waste fluids need to be treated if they are to be discharged. Waste from a single well might be diluted or treated. But if waste from dozens or hundreds of wells is discharged, negative impacts can occur. This is true even when single activities are conducted within established rules and regulations. A study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, which I have here, observed elevated salt concentrations in rivers downstream from treatment facilities accepting unconventional gas waste in Pennsylvania over the last decade. What role do the EPA investigations play? The EPA investigations in Pavilion, Dimmick, and Parker County can address the complaints that prompted them and demonstrate responsiveness to the community. They can determine if contamination is present and if there is an immediate risk to environmental or public health. They can also provoke thinking and discussion, as the Pavilion investigation did for me on the following points. 1, design and scope of research into gas development impacts needs to be carefully thought through, adhered to, and communicated. 2, regional differences matter. Geology, practices, and policy can vary by state and by gas play. 3, critical issues to acknowledge, discuss, and plan for include the management of waste fluids, the management of well integrity via casing and cementing, and the disclosure of chemical additives. And 4, oversight of both gas and water well construction is needed when target formations contain aquifers. A more complete commentary can be found on our website. An equally important question regarding these investigations is, what can't they do? They cannot act as risk assessments of water resource impacts from gas development accidents in general. This is because investigations occur within the context of specific geological, historical, and regulatory conditions. These also cannot address the risks presented by cumulative impacts. Broad risk assessments that incorporate cumulative impacts need data on a regional or national scale, and not just from places where complaints have been lodged or where contamination has occurred. It is just as important to know when things go right as it is to know when things go wrong. From what I understand of the ongoing EPA study of the potential impacts on drinking water resources, they are asking many good questions. It is a welcome response to the need for assessments able to identify a set of shared and/or cumulative risks that transcend local conditions and that are beyond the purview of any single operator or state agency to manage. I'm looking forward to the results of their studies. One big study, however, does not mean we will have perfect answers. No single study can do that. The nature of research is to build understanding through repetition and consensus. This requires patience and willingness to adapt to new information. Lack of perfect information doesn't mean that activity should stop. But, like other activities that pose risks to water resources, treatment and discharge of sewage, for example, unconventional gas development does require oversight to minimize risk. What does this mean for the regulation of shale gas in states and the country as a whole? What is clear to me, anyway, from the EPA investigations is that local characteristics will vary. This suggests that states should continue to be the leaders in day-to-day regulation, since state agencies are most familiar with local conditions. Indeed, many states already regulate gas development, like Utah, to varying levels and stringencies. This is explored in detail in a recent Resources for the Future study, part of which I have included as Figure 3 in my testimony. That being said, the need for broad assessment of some risks, along with cumulative impacts that we know can happen, means that a broad examination and perspective is needed. In response to these general risks and cumulative impacts, it may make sense to establish basic standards at the regional or federal level. In closing, we should be working thoughtfully toward understanding both the benefits and the risks of our energy choices and how they interact with our valuable water resources. To not know the benefits and risks of unconventional gas development while the activity is new is fair enough. We've not had time to fully understand. But it's my hope we can continue to learn through research, experience, and dialogue so that we increase our energy and water resource literacy in the years to come. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm happy to take questions.